You could literally just exercise and not work on your nutrition, and you would still get all the health benefits of exercise. Even if you come to me with some logic like, oh, I don't even care how I look. It's like, cool, you should still probably work out, because do you want to at least be healthier? Do you want a shot at living a longer? People think they lack motivation because they're lazy. They lack motivation because they don't realize how far away from their ideal self they actually are.
There's one of my favorite books of all time is called Switch: How to Make Change When Change is Hard. And they talk about these 3 surprising things about change. And one of them is what often looks like laziness is actually exhaustion. And that's what you
Yeah.
just said, like, really reminded me of that.
Well, before we hopped on, you were saying how you're like, oh man, you're a beast. Like, you put out so much content. And my immediate response was, I feel like I'm not doing enough. I feel like, there's weeks where I'm like, oh man, I feel like I'm just being lazy. I'm like, I haven't put out enough content this week, or I didn't get a new client this week. And you're met with all that. And it took, my therapist said to me recently, just like, you don't have to have this whole thing figured out.
Yeah.
Because my daughter is 4 months old. So we're still only 4 months into having 2 kids. So we went from 1 to 2 kids. We're navigating parenthood and all this stuff. And she was like, you don't have to have it all figured out. And I was like, you know what? That's crazy, because I didn't even think about it, but my expectation was I should have this figured out in a week.
Yeah.
It's like I should have everything down pat, back to my routines, back to everything in a week. But setting that expectation kept setting me up for not only disappointment, but sometimes being too selfish and putting my routines and my structure and my work ahead of just being dad. And that's something that I've been working with, internally for myself.
Yeah.
Too.
Yeah. I'm in the same boat. I've started a type of therapy a couple of years ago. Maybe it's been 2 or 3 years now, but it's called internal family systems. And it's essentially, we create segments of our personality and our character and how we talk to ourselves based on, experiences we had when we were kids, like usually prior to like 13 years old. And that voice that you mentioned earlier, like, that we all have, like, these internal dialogues and these internal voices are basically those small children that live inside of us that are, that have this experience. And like, when you can, like what you said, you're doing the work to identify that internal voice and figure out how you can heal that. Because I think what you said is like your therapist told you, and what's probably true is like, you don't have to have it all figured out. And in fact, you probably will never have it all figured out. It's not about a product that you're trying to get out of your life. It's about, engaging in the process that is lifelong. It'll never end.
Yeah, man. And that's the advice that I give to clients, is that, like, they'll, like, for example, I'm doing a group 6-week challenge right now. It just started yesterday. So I had, 37 people sign up for the 6-week program. And, day one, I have a group chat going, so people are very excited. They're like, oh, today went great, or today I was able to do this, but I wasn't able to do this, or today didn't go so hot. And I have to, like, always tell them, like, don't expect to figure this all out on, like, week 1. Like, this is I've been working out consistently for over, like, 20 years now, which is crazy. Yeah. And I still, like, have days where I'm like, how am I going to fit the workout in today? Or, like, how do I condense this? Or, oh, my back was a little tight when I was doing that RDL. Like, I got to work on my form. I'm still figuring it out. But because when it comes to fitness, I've programmed my mind to understand that I will figure it out. Like, it'll ever evolving. It's a non-negotiable. And I think people do that in a lot of areas of their life, but for some reason, a lot of folks have trouble when it comes to the fitness thing, getting their mind there, right? Like, people have kids and they don't expect themselves to be perfect. They just know they've got the rest of their life to figure this parenting thing out. But when it comes to fitness, it's like, if they don't figure it out in 4 weeks, they get discouraged and quit.
Yeah. And I've, being a coach myself, of course, I've bumped up against this with, like, hundreds of people, and one of the things that, like, really, I used to say, I have a 3-part purpose: optimal health, it used to be deep human connection and self-actualization. And I've recently been
Mhm.
wrestling with, again, it's an evolving process. And more lately, I've been saying it's about optimal habits, right? Like it's not, it's like
Mhm.
what you do daily and what you do consistently is going to produce all the results that you want. And I think that people with fitness in particular, and especially when, because it's same thing. Most of the people I work with are parents, they're professionals,
Mhm.
right? And fitness feels like such a selfish thing. To them
Yeah.
it feels like, I'm doing this and it's only for me. And these are people who are loving, giving, supportive people of other people, and they have just such a hard time prioritizing themselves and seeing how that facilitates all the other amazing things they're doing in life.
Yeah, and actually, I've actually had some talks with clients about that specific topic recently, and I had um, a couple of nuggets that I felt were helpful, and just a way to. I think that the one of the reasons why the fitness area seems to be so difficult for people to get started with is because they've made the mistake of looking at it as this sort of like elective bonus,
Mm,
right? It's like, oh, a bonus would be to feel confident in my bathing suit. A bonus would be to lose 20 pounds. So it's like this, they're not tying it into like what it really is
yeah,
about, right? They're looking at it for like these like elective sort of bonus things. So it's not even in terms of like they're thinking they're selfish for doing it. They're just like, oh, that's this like fun thing that I'll get to. If it happens, it happens. And they're missing the point, which is the feeling good in the bathing suit, the losing the 30 pounds, the being able to see, definition in your arms, all that stuff. That's not what you're chasing. What you're chasing is this, like what I break it down to is like improving your quality of life, extending or increasing your lifespan, and then it's improving your mental health and then improving your physical health. And none of those things say anything about losing belly fat,
right.
right? Those are all like very important pillars you should probably be focusing on. And I also don't think that people have any trouble being selfish when it comes to things that are comforting, right? So, parents will say, I don't want to be selfish and spend 30 minutes working out, but they'll, stay up on Friday night and have a bottle of wine and be hungover the next morning and not engage with their kids. They'll work that extra 10 hours at work to get the project done, to get the career boost. If that means they're missing, softball games, they'll do those things. It's just there's like this missing piece. And I feel like if you or me or any coach could really figure out what that switch is and be able to replicate that over and over with minimal effort, you'd be a billionaire. But like there's something when it comes to fitness that people are just like, I'll get to
Yeah,
that.
I think you nailed it a couple times when you were talking earlier, that I think people often focus too much on the symptoms of a healthy life, like you mentioned, the abs, the arms, the
Yeah.
muscles, or whatever it is. And they completely miss the actual point. Like that's just this byproduct of what's the most important. Is like you feel like you're on fire, and you know this, and I know this for myself and through coaching other people. Everything is better in your life, and you are better at everything else when you're just living a healthier life. Like, yes, it's nice, it's a luxury to have the abs, and it's a luxury to have the arms and everything, but the non-negotiable, like the word you used earlier, the non-negotiable is you are living an optimized, consistent, habitual life that pours gasoline on every other fire in your life.
Yeah, and I can honestly say that if someone told me that I wasn't going to get any visible physical benefits from working out, so I like no matter how hard I worked out, my body wasn't going to change at all from the way it looks right now. I would still do it regularly because I just know how much better I feel when I do it.
Right.
Right? So even if I like you've seen this, man. If you've been working out for 20, 30 years, there's probably big chunks of time where you were working out consistently, you probably didn't see much change in your
Yeah.
body. People think that they're just always consistently forever getting better and better looking when they're working out. I've gone years sometimes where I feel like I don't look much different. Like I don't think I look much different in 2024 than I did in 2017, right? And that's 7 years. But if I hadn't worked out, I would look way different and not in a good way. And also I would just not be in a good spot, man. So I know when I'm going through like a rough mental patch when I just don't feel like working out. But even when I don't feel like working out, I'll still make myself do something because I just know how that snowballs.
Yes.
And that's the cycle people get into, right? It's like I don't feel energetic or I'm tired, so I'm not going to work out, but then you don't work out so you feel less energetic and more tired, and then you don't work out again, and it builds this cycle. And man, I think for a lot of people nutrition is going to be probably the most impactful thing they could work on in terms of like how if they want to look better, it's like nutrition all the
Right.
way. But if you could literally just exercise and not work on your nutrition, and you would still get all the health benefits of exercise. So even if you don't care, even if you come to me with some logic like, oh, I don't even care how I look, it's like, cool, you should still probably work out, because do you want to at least be healthier? Do you want a shot at living a longer life? Like, it doesn't need to be, you don't need to train for the Olympia. You just got to probably like lift some weights a couple times a week and go for some walks.
Yeah. And I think that's the biggest thing. It's like it's not so much like you said, I'm 47 years old. I've been working out at least 3 times a week since I was 14 years old, and sometimes more than that. Since the age of about 21, I've pretty much looked exactly the same. Like, you know what I mean? My genetics are what they are. And, but when I haven't worked, I have also gone through longer periods of, depression and all kinds of things where I didn't work out. And those are the things that actually highlight for me more of the reason to work out, because it's not like so much like you said, I'm not going to look like Arnold Schwarzenegger ever in my life, but how I feel when I'm not doing that stuff is horrific. Like, I feel like absolute garbage, and I will do anything to not feel like that.
I think the crazy thing too is like you can get to that feeling of feeling like garbage even if you just dial it down too much. So it doesn't even have to be that like you're skipping it. It's like even if you just dial it back too much or you're slacking too much. So I think if you're listening to this and you're like struggling with motivation, and this was something I heard recently that at first I was like, it's one of those things where like you don't want to hear it, and then you get like a little defensive right away, and then you think about it and you think, oh man, that's probably right. But it was basically saying if you're lacking motivation, it's because you think you're closer to it's basically what you're comparing yourself to. So if you're lacking motivation, people think they lack motivation because they're lazy. They lack motivation because they think they don't realize how far away from their ideal self they actually are.
Right.
So if you're comparing yourself, not you specifically, but if a person is comparing themselves to their parents, and their parents never exercised, ate crappy, maybe they weren't very emotionally regulated, they weren't good communicators. You could be a crappy communicator who doesn't eat right, but maybe you own a Peloton, and you could be like, well, I'm still doing better than my parents. So like your motivation isn't going to be there to like really push it. But I think once you get to being in good shape, and I don't mean in good shape by like having a six pack, I mean where you feel really good, when you slip away from that, now you know how far away you are from that goal. So your motivation is higher. And when people think like about someone like me or you, like how do we stay motivated after for me, 20 something years, 30 something years of consistently working out, it's because I know how far away I can get from feeling good, and I know what it's like to feel good. So for me, if I get a bad night's sleep, the next day I'm immediately like, oh, I got to get a good night's sleep tonight because I don't feel great.
Yeah.
Right. And whereas most people, they go years and years and years and years without getting a good night's sleep and without exercising, so they're just used to not feeling great. So again, there's no motivation there because they don't even know what the other side looks like.
Yeah.
Right. That it's hard to get motivated to do something that you don't can't even comprehend what that other side feels like.
Yeah. And I while you were talking, it also reminded me of something else, right? Like your physical being, no matter how fit or unfit you are, really isn't, it doesn't matter that much in and of itself. What really matters is
Mhm.
that this is your vehicle to living a life that you love, right? And for me, I'm always coaching people on finding purpose. Like, what is it that
Yeah.
you want to say? What meaning do you want your life to have? And there's like an infinite amount of things that you could choose there. But for me, what I found to, in terms of the motivation piece, right, is like, let's not get so locked in on how you look or even how you feel, because that's really that's great for you. But what's most important is, what are you using that for to contribute to the world? And like you mentioned, you're a father, you're a business owner,
Mhm.
you probably have other things that you care about beyond just being a fitness coach.
Mhm.
And that's something I'm always trying to lock people into. And I'm curious your thoughts on that, like purpose, using your physicality for something beyond yourself.
I think that's a really good way of putting it. It actually got me thinking about my own approach to fitness sometimes, and uh, yeah, man, I think that's a really good way to put it. Is like, what are you trying, basically, like, what are you trying to get in shape for?
Right.
Like, why are you going? And I tap into that with my clients a lot when like, I just did this I had a group call on Sunday, and I asked everyone to type in the chat, like, what's their goal with this, what's their overall goal, and people were typing in like very I want to lose 30 pounds. I want to be healthier. So I started having them dig, well, why?
Yes.
Like, why do you want to be healthier? What's up? Like, what do you want to use that for? Like, what are you going to be able to do that you can't do now if you're healthier? Like, and then when you get really, really deep with it, like, people are like, thinking, I want to be able to play with my kids. I want to be able to, get a promotion at work. Like, what are you using that for? And that's a good way to frame it. Like, what is this goal going to bring into your life? And sometimes, man, I think if you haven't made that connection, you can easily just like not get motivated to do it and fall off. And I think for other people sometimes, and I've been guilty of this, is if you don't make that connection, you end up sacrificing the things that are you actually want for this other goal that you think you want,
Yes.
right? So like for me in the past, there was many times where I was so obsessive about what I ate or making sure I got my workouts in that I wasn't connecting the dots. It's like, well, why am I working out? Why am I eating healthy? So I can feel my best, so I can enjoy time with my, girlfriend at the time, now wife. But I would be not enjoying that time because if she wanted to do anything that was outside of my like eating habits, I would be all stressed out about it, right? And now I honestly, man, I deal with that even with work, right? Like when people ask me like, what's the point of my business? My number one priority is like, oh, it provides for my family. Like I genuinely want to help people. I do, and I like what I do. But my main goal of my business is to provide a good service that allows me to provide a good life for my family and allows me to show up. I'm showing up as a coach on this podcast for my clients. I want to be able to show up that way at home. And there's been many times, dude, where I haven't shown up at home because I was chasing this goal of a business and I was not making that connection. So you're turning on this, and I see people probably do this all the time, but like you're showing up for a podcast or a client call or a client appointment and you're putting on your best self. You're trying to be motivating, coaching, energetic, funny. And then you go home to the people that matter most and you're withdrawn, quiet, stressed, little short. And dude, like that was helpful to me to just remember to make that connection.
Yeah, and you've seen this too. And so one of my personal values is prioritize what matters. And like another way to say that
Mhm.
is prioritize what really matters, and
Yeah.
trying to keep things in focus, because you've seen this. I've been this way in my life where I've achieved an elite level of something. Maybe it's fitness, maybe it's business, and I was actually the least healthy and the least, I was the least engaged in what really mattered in my life, because I
Yeah.
had given so much to that one thing and forgot to prioritize what really matters.
Yeah, man. Yeah, and I've been there, man. And I think for a lot of people when it comes to their fitness goals, they're almost use the potential of obsession as a reason to not do it, right? They're like they know of some stories of people who are so obsessed with fitness that it's like disordered. So then they'll be like, well, I don't want to be obsessed with fitness, so then they just don't do it at all, which is like the equivalent of saying I don't want to be obsessed with work and then not having a job, right? It's like that doesn't solve it, doesn't
Right.
help you. So I think building that connection and working on your daily habits and what you're actually focused on can help pull people out of that mindset prison that they live in, which is, well, I don't want to be obsessed with this, so then I'm not going to do it at all. You have to find that balance. But yeah, I can relate to that, man. I remember like the start of the start of 2023. I was like, or start of 2023, 2022, I think it was. I was like not feeling great, not looking great, not being as consistent with my nutrition, and it was like the best like financial year in my business that I had ever had. And I was like the most miserable, the most withdrawn, the most out of shape I had been in a while. And it was because I was just obsessively chasing this goal and completely forgot like what even made me happy.
Yeah.
Like I just completely forgot about it. And that's when I started doing more of this deeper work. And that's when I started relating it to clients. And now, honestly, my constraint with my business is like you were kind enough to say, is that you feel like I am a good educator and I'm very smart and I can help people with this stuff. It's finding a way to get that message to more people, to connect with them and show them what I have to offer, because we were talking about this too, is like when it comes to fitness, it's almost like homework for a lot of people.
Right.
They don't want to hear about it,
Yeah.
right? So you have to find a fun, catchy way to package your messaging, but then you just become noise in this crowded market, and you have to figure out what your next step is. And yeah, dude, it's tough. And I see people struggle with that with their own fitness journeys, like they have these big goals. They don't have an emotional attachment to the goal. They're overwhelmed with the amount of information they have. They don't know exactly where to start. So it's just becomes much, much easier to just do what you've always done.
Right.